Title: The HOA Wars, Skateboard Showdown. 911. What's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional, and prepared for the worst. This is an emergency. There's a criminal in our neighborhood. The woman's voice was shrill, breathless, as if she had just witnessed a robbery in progress. What's happening, ma'am? A delinquent is trespassing and causing destruction. He's got some kind of dangerous weapon. She gasped dramatically. He's attacking private property. The dispatcher's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Weapon? Attack? This sounded serious. Can you describe the suspect? He's on some kind of rolling device. Moving fast. Doing aggressive maneuvers. The dispatcher frowned. Rolling device? Ma'am, are you saying he's on a skateboard? Yes, that's what I said. A dangerous skateboard. The dispatcher exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples. This wasn't the first time she had taken a ridiculous call from an HOA neighborhood. But the woman on the phone was already screaming for urgent police backup. She had no choice but to send officers. Meanwhile, Jake had no idea he was about to be the subject of a 911 emergency call. Jake was just enjoying his afternoon, gliding across the smooth pavement of his own driveway, perfecting a kickflip. The air was crisp, and for once, there was no homework looming over him. Then came the screech. You. Stop right there. Jake sighed. He didn't even have to turn his head to know who it was. Karen. Every HOA had that one neighbor. The one who had nothing better to do than make everyone's life miserable. The self-appointed lawmaker, judge, jury, and executioner of all things neighborhood peace. And here she was, stomping down the sidewalk, arms crossed, nose upturned like she had just smelled something offensive. Are you seriously skateboarding? Jake exhaled through his nose. Here we go. I'm in my own driveway, Karen. I am the president of this HOA, young man. And I know for a fact that skateboarding is illegal here. Jake raised an eyebrow. Illegal? Skateboarding? That's not a rule. Karen's lips tightened. It should be, she huffed. Do you have any idea how dangerous that thing is? You could be damaging property. What if you hit a car? What if you scratch the pavement? What if you crash into a pedestrian? Karen, I'm literally just doing a kickflip, Jake said, demonstrating smoothly, flipping the board under his feet. Karen shrieked. You see? That was an aggressive maneuver. Jake blinked. What? Before he could even respond, Karen was already pulling out her phone. I'm calling the police, she declared. Jake stared at her. You're calling 911 because I'm skateboarding? Because you're being a nuisance, she snapped. And you're endangering the neighborhood. Jake groaned, running a hand down his face. He had lived in this neighborhood long enough to know that arguing with Karen was like arguing with a brick wall, except the brick wall had a really loud voice and called itself the queen of the HOA. So he did the only logical thing. He skated away. Oh no you don't. Come back here, you little criminal. Jake kept skating, casually rolling down the sidewalk, ignoring Karen's furious screams behind him. She was still talking to 911, waving her arms around like she was directing traffic. A few minutes later, he turned into his own home, where his dad, me, was watering the lawn, blissfully unaware of the impending disaster. Hey, Dad. Hey, sport. How was the session? Karen just called the cops on me. I paused. What? Jake shrugged. Yeah. She started screaming that skateboarding was illegal and that I was a danger to society. I closed my eyes. Not again. This wasn't the first time Karen had thrown a fit over something petty. Last month, she fined the neighbors for having the wrong shade of blue on their trash bins. Before that, she lost her mind over a parked car being half an inch over the driveway line. And now, apparently, skateboarding was a felony. You sure she actually called the police? I asked. Oh yeah, Jake said. She was yelling into the phone like I was committing grand theft auto. I sighed, shutting off the hose. All right, let's go see how this circus plays out. We didn't have to wait long. Less than 5 minutes later, 2 police cars rolled up, lights flashing. Karen stood triumphantly in the middle of the street, pointing at Jake like he was a wanted fugitive. There he is. Arrest him. The officers stepped out, hands on their belts, scanning the area. They looked at Karen. Then at Jake, standing there with his skateboard under his arm. One officer, a tall guy with a mustache, frowned. Wait, ma'am, are you saying the emergency is a kid skateboarding? Karen gasped as if personally insulted. Not just skateboarding. He's been terrorizing the neighborhood with that thing. It's dangerous. It's against HOA policy. The officer glanced at me. Sir, is that true? Nope, I said. She just doesn't like my son and makes up rules to control people. Karen scoffed. Oh, you're just going to take his word for it? The officer sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Ma'am, you do realize that calling 911 over a non-crime is considered abuse of emergency services, right? Karen's face twitched. This was an emergency, she shrieked. An emergency, the officer said dryly, is someone breaking into a house. Not a teenager doing skateboard tricks in his own driveway. Karen's jaw dropped. Are you saying you're not going to arrest him? The officers exchanged looks. The mustache one turned back to me and Jake. We're really sorry for the inconvenience, sir. You and your son have a great day. Karen's face turned beet red. And that's when I realized this was about to get so much worse. If there was one thing I knew about Karen, it was that she never let things go. The very next morning, as I was sipping my coffee and watching Jake practice his kickflips, a bright orange notice was taped to our front door. Jake skated over and plucked it off the door, already groaning. Let me guess. HOA violation. I skimmed the paper. Violation notice. You are in breach of HOA Regulation 14A, unapproved recreational activity. Skateboarding is deemed a hazardous activity and is hereby prohibited within the neighborhood. Failure to comply will result in escalating fines. Fine amount, $500. I laughed. Jake frowned. What's so funny? I turned the paper around and showed him the signature at the bottom. Signed, Karen Whitmore, HOA President. Of course, Jake muttered. She's really trying to fine us for skateboarding in our own driveway? Looks like it. Jake's grip on the paper tightened. So what do we do? I grinned, tossing the paper into the garbage. Absolutely nothing. Ignoring Karen was like waving a red flag in front of a bull. That afternoon, as Jake and I were working on some home repairs in the garage, we noticed something off. Across the street, mounted on a light pole, was a brand new security camera, and it was pointed directly at our driveway. Jake squinted. Dad, tell me Karen didn't just install spy cameras to catch me skateboarding. I rubbed my temples. I'd love to say that's crazy, but let's be real. That's exactly what she did. Sure enough, Karen was outside, pretending to check her mailbox while sneaking glances at us. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the city's zoning laws. After a quick search, I smirked. What's up? Jake asked. I turned my phone toward him. Turns out, installing private surveillance cameras aimed at someone else's property without consent? Illegal. Jake grinned. So what do we do? I waved. Karen froze. Then I walked straight across the street. Hey there, Karen. Love the new camera setup. Karen pursed her lips. Oh, just taking extra security precautions for the neighborhood. I nodded. Right. Just a small issue, though. You see, it's illegal to point private security cameras at someone else's property. Her face twitched. That's not true. I held up my phone, showing the exact law that proved her wrong. Karen blanched. You might want to get that taken down before I file a formal complaint with the city, I added, smiling. She huffed, turned on her heel, and stormed inside. By that evening, the camera was gone. With the camera plan ruined, Karen launched phase 2 of her war. Fake HOA violations. Within 24 hours, we received $750 fine for failure to maintain lawn aesthetic standards, $1,200 fine for excessive noise from recreational activity, $600 fine for unauthorized storage of skateboarding equipment given public spaces. Jake counted them up and whistled. Damn, she's going for scorched earth. I chuckled, pulling out our golden ticket. The property deed. You see this, kid? I said, holding it up. This proves we're not actually under HOA jurisdiction. Jake's jaw dropped. Wait. What? That's right, I grinned. When we moved here, I opted out of HOA membership. Karen has zero legal authority over this house. Jake threw his head back laughing. So she's been wasting her time this whole time. Yep. And now? It was payback time. The next morning, I showed up at the HOA office with my property deed and a stack of every fake violation notice Karen had issued. The HOA board members were already there, looking miserable. It didn't take long to realize why. Karen was standing at the front, rambling about community safety and the dangers of rogue skateboarders. When she saw me walk in, she smirked. Oh, look who finally decided to comply with the rules. Are you here to pay your fines? I set my documents down on the table. Actually, Karen, I'm here to inform you that you've been illegally harassing my family. Her smirk faltered. Excuse me. I turned to the rest of the board. My property is not under HOA jurisdiction. Karen has been issuing fraudulent fines, illegally installing surveillance, and calling the police for non-existent crimes. Murmurs rippled through the board members. Karen laughed nervously. Oh, don't be ridiculous. The board fully supports. Actually, one of the board members interjected, clearing his throat. We didn't approve all of these. Karen whipped around. What? Another board member, Bob, shifted awkwardly. Karen, you've been acting alone on most of these violations. We never actually voted on banning skateboards. Karen's face turned purple. Of course we did. I slid the property deed across the table. Here's legal proof that you have no authority over my property. And if you don't rescind every single one of these fines by the end of the day, I smiled, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Silence. Karen looked like she was going to explode. One of the board members quickly grabbed the violation notices. Well, get those sorted right away. Karen slammed her hands on the table. You can't just let him win. Bob sighed. Karen, we need to talk. Privately. And just like that, the board members escorted Karen out of the room. Jake and I walked out of the HOA office victorious. By the next day, all the fines were dropped. And 1 week later, Karen was removed as HOA president. Jake smirked. So, I can keep skateboarding. I grinned. You can skate wherever you want, kid.